Hi there, my name is Jamie Clark. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the negative impacts of road salts on our environment. If you ever lived in a cold climate such as Canada, I'm sure you're familiar with what road salts are and what exactly their purpose is. For anyone who doesn't know, road salts are used as de-icing and anti-icing chemicals that are applied to roads and sidewalks for winter road maintenance as well as safety. In the winter months of November, December, and January, the roads become very icy due to the low temperatures and snow, and this ultimately leads to an increased number of car accidents. Without de-icing the roads, they become extremely dangerous. So not only are road salts placed on the road, but they are also placed on sidewalks. This helps to prevent people from slipping and falling and therefore becoming injured. So road salts overall do create a safer environment for humans. However, they can be very damaging to our environment. When the weather does start to warm, road salts can be washed away into ditches and the surrounding environment. Our North Saskatchewan River that runs through the city of Edmonton here in Canada has many roads that are close to it and therefore has a high probability of some road salts ending up in this freshwater river. The most common de-icers are inorganic chloride-based salts like sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, and calcium chloride. These road salts are able to enter the freshwater system and persist as the chloride ion is not readily broken down in a way to reduce toxicity. As seen in a study on Lake Constance, which is the second largest lake in Europe, they saw an increase in chloride concentration by 2.4, estimating that 52% of the increase was contributed by road de-icing salts. Another study looked at the effect of road salts on the forest soils in the mountains of Czech Republic and found an increase in sodium and a pH closer to 8 in the soils that were close to the roads as compared to farther away. As well, microbial biomass and respiration activity were significantly lower near the roadside. When road salts make their way into lake ecosystems, they can affect the ecosystem in multiple ways. They can sink to the bottom and increase in concentration with depth due to density. This can result in and trigger oxygen depletion in the hypoaluminium, and this can cause cascading effects on the trophic levels in the ecosystem. The cascade can ultimately cause algal blooms, which increase the phytoplankton population but decreases zooplankton population, which can therefore affect the higher up trophic levels. A decrease in zooplankton is critical as they can play a critical role as grazers, predators, and prey in their ecosystem. Road salts can also alter the nutrient and carbon cycles in the ecosystem, specifically the hydrology and oxygen dynamics that can lead to more phosphorus being released from lake sediments. Road salt can also increase anaerobic respiration in wetlands by increasing microbial mats at the sediment-water interface, which in turn reduces pH and elevates the concentration of exchangeable cations like calcium and magnesium, which can increase primary production and anaerobic respiration. The increase in anaerobic respiration is concerning as it can increase methane release into the atmosphere. In an experiment on Atlantic salmon embryos, they were exposed to high salt concentration for the first 24 hours of fertilization. They saw that transcriptional changes were indicative of the interference in osmoregulation, oxidative stress, metabolism, renal function, as well as the development of the embryos. Not research has been done on the impacts of road salts on fish, but there has been a decent amount done on the effects of road salts on amphibians. One study looked at the impact of exposure of road salts on the tadpoles of wood frogs. Tadpoles exposed to a 96-hour static test of sodium chloride resulted in reduced activity, weight, and displayed physical abnormalities like a bent tail. In a 90-day chronic experiment, the frogs had a lower survivorship, a decreased time to metamorphosis, reduced activity and weight, and increased physical abnormalities like a bent tail or disintegrating tail, and were struggling to swim or swimming in circles. Another study on wood frog embryos showed that the embryos in high salt concentration had a reduced survival rate that went from 91% to 41%. Experiment on salamander embryos have showed a reduced survivorship to 68% in moderate salt concentration and to 3% in high salt concentration. As well in the study, they found that salamander embryos that were near the highways were smaller than those that were farther away from the highways. While road salts have a negative impact on many species, for some, the increase in salt concentration can be beneficial. In freshwater systems, some cyanobacteria are tolerant to the increased salt levels. However, some cyanobacteria are able to produce toxins, meaning that increasing salt levels can increase the release of toxins from cyanobacteria. This result can change the dynamics of the ecosystem. Some species of macrophytes have reduced productivity in response to increased salt, while others can have a positive response. One study looked at the effect of road salts on the food web and found there to be a positive effects on tadpoles. They inoculated pond mesocombs with algal and zooplankton and manipulated the road salt presence and tadpole presence. In their elevated chloride treatment, they found adult copepods densities decrease significantly, while tadpoles grew larger and metamorphosized sooner. From the study results, they suggested that a decline in zooplankton actually increases the algal resources available for the tadpoles, allowing them to grow larger and metamorphosis. The increased salt concentration shifts the ecosystem in favor of species with a salt tolerance, but this can decrease the diversity. Some increase in salt concentration can produce sublethal effects to species in the ecosystem, but the effects can be magnified by natural stressors such as predation and competition. Not all species are negatively impacted by the addition of road salts, but many of them are, and unfortunately there is overall a negative effect on the ecosystem because of them. So now, since I have talked to you about the negative impacts of road salts, I asked some of my friends to see what the general public thinks and knows about the negative impacts of road salts, and see if they have any other suggestions of ways we can help to save our environment, help reduce these negative impacts, and maybe reduce our road salt use as well.
Road salts are some kind of salt that they put on the roads to melt the ice, so then the roads are less slick during the winter time.
I'm not too sure what road salts are, but I'm pretty sure it just prevents you from sliding on the road.
Personally, I don't have much experience with it. I don't believe it's great for the environment. Wildlife can eat it. I don't know how well it breaks down. It can affect our water system. So probably not the best.
Pretty sure road salts have a bad effect on the environment because there's a lot more salt in the environment, so it affects the plants and the water systems.
I think I'm against because I care about our environment, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure they're not great for the environment. So I think we should be using something else that's more safe for the environment, biodegradable, safe for our wildlife. Yeah.
I'm against it because it's bad for the environment and it's also bad for your vehicle.
I think we can find a different resource to break down the road salts, like, I don't know, some people use beet pulp, I've heard. I don't know. Just something that's more eco-friendly, good for our environment, because you wouldn't want, like, say your kid picks up some snow and there's some ice salt in there. Do you want them to be eating that? No.
We can stop using them all together and just use gravel.
Most people I know, like my friends here in the interviews, are against the continued use of road salts and agree that they have negative impacts on the environment. People know they're bad, but many people might not know specifically how they are harmful. Lots of research has actually been done on the negative impacts, but there hasn't been many solutions or way we can lower our use of road salts. Environmental Canada has actually done research on road salts and have determined them to pose a risk to our plants, animals, our aquatic environment by harming our fish and polluting our drinking water, but yet they still haven't been banned and are still allowed to be used here in Canada. Alternatives to road salts are encouraged, like sand and fine gravel, and are a good alternative that have become popular as you see across campus here at the university. But unfortunately, they are more expensive to road salts, which can deter people from using them. Some suggestions have been made for pre-storm applications of things like a liquid de-icer, which is sometimes a mixture of refined corn, magnesium, chloride, and water to help reduce the freezing point of roads to decrease snow and ice adhesion before winter storms, as well as it helps to bind salt to the road surface better. Beet juice derivatives mixed with brine is another good alternative suggested to be applied, as it allows for less salt to be used, it's biodegradable, and not as harmful to vegetation. We can also manage our salt use in a better way, making sure we are storing our salt in a proper storage system so it doesn't leach and contaminate the soil. When we also remove the snow containing the residual salt, we can make sure we're not dumping it into waterways without treatment. So overall, as you've learned here today, that road salts are bad for the environment, but there hasn't been really any good solution to this. This is something I really think we need to work on to help reduce our negative impact to the environment. Here you'll find a list of my references that I use to collect all my information, as well as my images. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about the negative impacts our road salts have on our environment.